We are so pleased to present Kukuli Velarde, Plunder Me Baby at AMOCA. This exhibition is part of the Getty-led Pacific Standard Time LA program, which is a far-reaching and ambitious exploration of Latin American and Latino art in dialogue in Los Angeles. There are over 80 cultural institutions across Southern California participating in this initiative. There's a wonderful free booklet at the front desk to help you discover all of the PST LA exhibitions, so please pick one up. There's also some over at the bar. So I started thinking about this exhibition in the late 1990s when I was still living on the East Coast. I was visiting a friend who was on the board of the Clay Studio in Philadelphia. We went through the artist residency spaces together at the Clay Studio, and that was the first time I saw Kukuli Velarde's work, and I haven't stopped thinking about it ever since. We never met in person until yesterday. But when the Getty announced the focus on the current Pacific Standard Time was going to be on Latin America, I knew immediately what artists we would exhibit at AMOCA. This is the first West Coast exhibition by US-based Peruvian artist Kukuli Velarde. She was born in Cusco in 1962 and moved to the US in 1988. Kukuli has a Bachelor of Fine Arts degree from Hunter College and currently lives and works in Philadelphia. Her work is included in collections at the Houston Museum of Fine Arts in Texas, the Racine Art Museum in Wisconsin, the Fuller Craft Museum in Massachusetts, and the John Michael Kohler Art Center in Wisconsin. She is a recipient of some of the most major awards in the country, including a John Simon Guggenheim Fellowship, a Paula Krasner Foundation grant, a USA Knight Fellowship, a Pew Fellowship, and a Joan Mitchell Foundation grant. It gives me great pleasure to welcome Kukuli Velarde.
Thank you very much for coming. I'm very happy to be here in LA with my girls. And usually I have a lot of things to say. I'm a very talkative person, but I feel a little bit speechless in terms of how moving it is to have the opportunity to show my work and to have among you people who either have helped me in my career, and I'm very appreciative of it, or are adoptee parents of some of my pieces. It has been quite an experience to just see them after such a long time and know that they are loved. And I really thank you guys for that. What I'm going to show you is the regular talk that I do to students. So I'm a little bit in the didactic side. So I always begin with what Peru is and where Peru is, because sometimes people ask me where it is, or what the language we speak and things like that. And so this is Peru in South America. And I think that we artists are the sum of our experiences, as any other human being is the sum of their experiences since they are born until the very day that they are sitting or standing somewhere. I want to show you where I come from so that you can understand more what the work is about. I am from Cusco. This is Machu Picchu. I have been in Machu Picchu so many times, I don't want to go again. And I'm sure that there are many people here that would like to go at least once in their lifetime. It's very cool, but it's like the staircase to heaven from Zeppelin for you guys. You have seen it already. You have heard it already many times. This is Machu Picchu. Again, but we are not only the Inca culture. There were many cultures throughout centuries in Peru, like in the north of Peru, in the coast. This is the mochica, the moche. And all these aesthetics were things that I would see since a kid. My mother, who was a journalist specialized in Peru, in the culture of Peru, would take me to so many places to see so many things that when I was a kid I didn't understand how important it was. all I wanted was to ride a horse. And I would go with my mom, I would be all the time telling her, but a horse, did you tell him that? Because she would say, let's go, come with me. But, and I'm like, there's going to be a horse there? Yes, there's going to be a horse. So I would go. So, but those things were still, are still in my mind, even though the horse is a little bit more. But anyway, this is Cusco. I was born in Cusco, but I was raised in Lima. This is Lima, the main square. And that's Lima. In Barranco, that's my husband, the most wonderful man, better person than I am. I always learn to be a human being thanks to him. This is my neighborhood with a Catholic procession passing by. We are very Catholic, whether or not we like it. And Lima has a lot of poverty and have a lot of luxury. It's the representation of the whole country, where there are two cultural streams that cohabit but do not mix, at least not willingly. These are the visuals that I had. These are the people of my country. These are some of them indigenous inhabitants, others are what is called mestizo inhabitants, or, well, like me, mestizo, we are mestizo people. And these are all just human beings who happen to live in Peru. I am not one of the Peruvians that would say I'm proud of being Peruvian, because I don't think that it's a matter of pride where you are from, but it's a matter of love. And sometimes I have to explain I am American, especially in these times. I have been 30 years in the United States. And I love Peru as I love my parents. And I love the United States as I love my husband. And I love my daughter as I will never love anything. Oh, I'm so cute. I had her when I was 48, It was a really decision. A wonderful decision, and also something that I usually talk with the students, because I want them to feel like we are free to choose. And for the longest time in my life, I never wanted to have children. I didn't like children. I didn't know how to carry them, and they even scared me. And one day I felt my arms empty, and I was 46. And then at 48, thanks to an in vitro, I gave birth to Vida, and I think that maternity is an opportunity. So much that my next work is going to be about my daughter. And that's something else I tell the students. We have been told that we have to speak in our work of serious big things. And I especially the young women who are becoming artists, I want them to understand that anything is possible in your work. That we shouldn't, because I've seen many times that they are told you have to do something serious. You have to do something that is really looks like has been made by a man. Mm-hmm. And I said no, I'm gonna make a series of my daughter. And I don't really, I was going to say I don't care what people say, because that is freedom. Art is freedom to me, always, in terms of materials, in terms of ideas, and that's what you're going to be in the work. Some other element that we have is very important is religion. It's everywhere, and it doesn't matter if you believe it or not, it's there. So this has fed visually again and again and again, and also the traditional arts are things that I've seen so many times, that when I came to the United States, I realized that I came with a different baggage. And Papo Colo, who is a very important Puerto Rican artist, and he runs Exit Art in New York, he told me once that I should forget where I come from, and that I should embrace the culture and read a book of theory every week. And I was doing at that time with the colonized ones. And I left his space, and I realized that I just was not going to be able to do that. I couldn't stop being myself, and I just couldn't imagine doing something that I didn't feel. And that's my take. You know, everybody has their own takes of their work. My family has also been very important. This is a photo of my mother and my father when they loved each other. I look more like my father, I think. I have his nose. And I was a prodigious child. I was drawing since I was 3, probably trying to get my parents' attention, which I got, sometimes too much. I had an exhibition since I was 10 until I was 22 every year of my life. And there was a point in which I was making more money than my parents combined. But I didn't know what art was. And even though I was told repeatedly that I was amazing, honestly, my father died thinking that I was the best artist in the world. And believe me, you miss that kind of fan. But he believed it with such certainty that I may have many insecurities as a human being, but I never doubted that I was an artist. And I'm not talking about being a good artist. You know, I don't know if I'm good or I'm bad. I don't really think that that's important. Art is something that I cannot imagine myself doing differently. These are some paintings of my youth. Very illustration-like. And then I went to New York, and a boyfriend I had in Mexico broke up with me, and I just couldn't live in the same city. So there was a possibility of going to New York, to the house of a friend of my father, who once came by and said, "Oh, whenever you want to go to New York, you can come to my house." And I took his word. And not only that, but I took a friend of mine with me, which in retrospective probably was not the best idea. But actually it did well. It ended well because they got married. You know, so it was not that horrible. In New York, Boris Vallejo, one of the great illustrators of in the United States, maybe some of you know who he is, tried to teach me to do illustration, but it was never in my heart. And no matter how much he said that I could make a lot of money doing illustrations, I just felt like that was not something I could endure doing. Especially Conan the Barbarian. I mean, think about it. So I went to Hunter College, and I hated my first semester of ceramics in the department. But in the second semester, in 1992, they were about to celebrate the 500th anniversary of Columbus landing in the Americas, and I felt outraged. I did feel outraged. It was not a pose, it was not a trend. I really felt hurt. So much that I was in the studio trying to make a figure that resembled some pre-Columbian sort of thing. I was very bored, and then I saw a can of nails, and I took the nails and I began putting the nails in the chest of this thing, and I found my voice. I felt for the first time that I could transfer what I thought and what I felt in my work, and it was magical. In that moment, ceramic meant something to me, and I stayed at Hunter even beyond after I did my bachelor's degree, because they also were very kind. They gave me space. I had a studio there. And in 1992, I did everything I could to say what I felt with my work. So this is another piece of the same series. This was my second semester at Hunter. And this is a being that has been The title, I think it says there. I don't remember how. But it's a male and a female that, since it's being impaled, cannot talk, and it's a cross because religion was a very important weapon of colonization. In reality, that was what was happening. These babies that you see there, I would carry them in the subway, all covered, and then people would ask me, "What are those?" And then I would open, and then I had opportunity to tell them what it was about. And in that way, I felt like at least I was doing something. It was at the same time that I got my first gallery representation called Stelwerk Latin American Art. And without even realizing, I began to exhibit in a Museum of Contemporary Art and places like that, and I didn't realize how lucky I was. How things just developed. This is Santa Chingada, the perfect little woman. Since it seems that sacrificing and being a woman who suffers for the sake of her family, I decided to put us on a pedestal. And this is a recurrent character. So I work in different things that are not particularly with this pre-Columbian inspiration that has returned and leave and come back and has always been present. These are spirits from the mountains. One day my mother took me in Cusco to a place that was just one big room and nothing else around. And we entered, and there was a huge table, and there were seats, benches on the next to the walls. And then they closed the windows and the door, and everything got dark. And they stood me up in the middle where the table was, and I was standing up there. And all of a sudden, I hear wings coming, ta 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 ta, boom, standing on the table. And the table was long. And then voices began to talk. They would come and they began to talk, and they would talk to me, and I would hear the voices coming from far away towards me, standing. There was nothing, like there's a wall, table, me, them. And they would come and talk to me and say, we know about you, whatever, whatever. And in that moment I thought, I'm not going to ask myself if this is real or not. Sometimes you have to embrace the experience. And I was grateful that they came. They were different mountains around Cusco. But, the one on the right is Abu Pampahuayo, and she's the Mother Earth of the Huacaipata Inca, the main square of Cusco. And they talked to me, and I was grateful, and I made the pieces. I made 2 sets, and one day Tony Kushner, the writer of Angels of America, came to my studio, saw the four that I had, and he adopted them. He got them. And I just saw a month ago or so an article in which he's standing up with his partner next to an angel. And these angels, he probably had them for 25 years. It was very gratifying to see them again and see them that he loves them. Isichapuito series was made from this piece. This is a Mexican Huastecan piece, 2,000 years old. I saw this photograph and I loved it. And I believe that I made it 2,000 years ago because it has a resemblance. When I was younger, my cheeks were a little higher. And I decided to make it. I made the piece, and then somebody made a mold, and I did, it was a press mold. I made 74 of them. And each of them was a wonderful experience. It was an opportunity. They are similar to each other, but they are very different from each other. And it was a pleasure to work in circles and to give them different personalities. And I've always been very unorthodox with ceramics. Like I would go to my husband and tell him, you know, I want to put a red glaze. Can you make it? Because he has a master's degree. I don't. Can you make it? And he was like, no, you should do textiles. And then what kind of red do you want? I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to do ever in my life a textile. I want just a red, you know, a red, vermilion, cadmium, it doesn't matter, just red. So I like the spontaneity in not knowing how it's going to come up, but at the same time, I try to do my best possible, and it's always a surprise. The first surprise is that it hasn't cracked and it's all intact. That's always something that we are very grateful when you open the kiln. And second of all, how the colors came. And if there's something I don't like or something I want to add, I do a lot of post-firing. Because to me, I love clay, but to me it's about the idea, it's about what I want to say, and I use whatever takes. This was at a color. That one broke, and I thought it would be a good addition to put, you know, one casualty.
No.
This was in Ireland, and they went to a biennial there. Just 2 months after my father died, and it was very, very, very strange to go not having him to tell him. So this is my first and last majolica. Again, you know, somebody who was telling me, why don't you do this time? I'm like, no, you know, the majolica, you cover that piece, and then you cut the colors, and you go over, and let's see what happens. And this is, this for example, is post-firing, is oil paint with terpenoid. That I baited the piece. And of course, I draw with a needle first, then I fire it, and then I did what I wanted. This is under glazes. This is in honor, quote unquote, of ex-boyfriend, the Mexican boyfriend I was in love with, and I came here because he broke up with me. He once said that he wanted to die like a dog in the highway. And this is when I thought that I was aging. This is another version of Santa Chingada. And this piece, you can see it in the exhibition. The idea is that you come up, you know, as a happy human being. You have your halo, you're a good person. But then pain strikes, things don't go well, and there's always two options. You learn from it and become stronger, or you succumb to it. And when you succumb, you weaken, and those demons that are melancholy, rancor, and the other one that I don't remember, bitterness, come to feed from your heart. And I think that sometimes when people are mean, they just have their because of pain and tragedy, they have their heart eaten by these demons. This is a casting, the red is casting paint. It's a very happy, making herself happy. This is a carved piece also with oil paint. It's called a vergüenza, shame. And these people are not having shame to be naked. It's because these people are about to be killed, and it's a shame that these things happen. And this is censorship. It's all casting paint. And I made this sculpture when my father died. He's coming off of me as a cocoon. And it was because of him. Then and this should have been before the Isichapuitu, but this was in the Lima Biennial, and these are titled Pure Love or Pure Lust. And I made, they are 90 of them, and it was very funny to see the men who were putting them up on the walls because they never wanted to touch the part that would have been the easiest thing to do, to hang them. It's a handle. And it was, they struggled, but So this piece is actually done in memory of a Costa Rican young man in the Academy of San Carlos in Mexico, who thought that was God's gift to women. And he was not that good looking, to be honest. But he, a lot of confidence. So one day he was passing by and I was standing up minding my own business. And I don't know for which reason, when he passed by, I thought of saying something, and I did, and I said, "Ay papi, que ricas tus piernas." And he was like struck by something that he couldn't understand. You could see that he happened to him the same thing that happened to us. Your knees weaken, you don't know how to walk because you feel like all of a sudden you are being observed and cataloged. And it's an uncomfortable feeling. And so I realized that I was making an impression. So I did it all the time I saw him. I told him all the catcalls I could. And every time he was even more and more and more uncomfortable. And one day he stopped to recriminate me, for that I shouldn't do that and all that stuff. I didn't stop, of course, but I tried him to understand. But papi, you're built. You're very nicely built. I mean, look at not everybody has those nice calves that you have. I mean, you should show them more. Oh my goodness! So thinking about that, I made the cupids, which are actually a kind of loose interpretation of what women. What sexuality is for women, and they have in their hearts catcalls for men. So one of them, for example, says, "I love your intelligence," and if you don't know, I'll teach you, and things like that, so that they could feel a little better with themselves. I always show this to students because I think that it's also important for them to realize that art is freedom. When I had this idea, some people told me, "Kukuli, everybody knows you for ceramics, and what they are going to think, that you're kind of flaky." That's what I made flaky, my piece that's titled Flaky. Which title is I'm kind of flaky. But I thought that I owed myself to be free. And this was a great idea. Follow me if you have the patience. The subtitle, Toilet Waters is the title. The subtitle is All of Us Deep Down Same Shit. So I went and I asked 12 people to donate their feces to me. And it took a lot of convincing, but also it was an interesting opportunity to have an intimate conversation in which even folding paper was an issue to discuss things that people never talk to anybody, not even to their spouses. And I enjoy every process, asking, conversing about it, and my husband would come and say, I don't know, I've never looked. And I was like, what do you mean you never look? Everybody looks. Even to know, wow, that's the biggest ever. I mean, you have to know. So it was interesting to see how personal it is. And anyway, my idea was to freeze dry them. So I called to all the taxidermists in the United States of America And nobody wanted to freeze dry my, right? And except one that told me that his machine was not working, but he could do it, and I should call next time. And then I called every 15 days or so until one day he told me, ma'am, that's not art, is crap. And if there is something that I'm sure about, is that as I don't have the knowledge to go and tell a taxidermist what taxidermia is, I don't think that the taxidermist can tell me what art is when art has been always my life. So I didn't feel bad or anything, but I realized that I was not going to freeze try them. So the next best option was a radiator in my studio, because in Latin America you walk por some streets and you see dogs poop dry, almost white, and I always had the idea that it takes a couple of days and that's it. It doesn't take a couple of days. I put in the radiator, it didn't work. Then I bought an electric oven and I put it in the yard. And I bought those tonsil stencils, those like scissors. And I would go every 10 minutes to turn them. And it still didn't work. It's, like I bought a vegetable dryer. And I finally was able, after a lot of work, to freeze dry some. And then I had to go to Puerto Rico to give a seminar about the status quo. And I put like 3 in a box with a mold that I had made and all that. And when I opened the box in Puerto Rico, there were not 3 of them. There were only 2. And up to this point, I wondered what that customs agent and lab guy thought about when they discovered what it was after probably some cutting and examining and all that. I never saw this work. I never saw it, and I never will probably, but I can tell you that it was a very interesting project, from conversations, from approaching people. I am a shy person, but when I have an idea, I do it. I think that is something also, a reason for which I show this to students, because I think that no matter what, if you have an idea, you make it. And it was a wonderful process. I don't regret at all the time that I took in this, not even the time that I'm taking talking about it right now. Then I've done some drawings. I'm going to go very fast to it. I like doing spontaneous drawings without pencil, just with markers in exhibitions. Because deep down, to be honest, I like to be in my shows. If they gave me 15 days to stay here, I would make a mural there. I'm just saying. At the end of the exhibition, because these drawings I do throughout the exhibition, and at the end of the exhibition, I paint the wall white, because that is something I like about those drawings that don't even belong to me. And then here are Plunder Me Baby. This was the very first piece of the series. And the idea of Plunder Me Baby is that these pre-Columbian pieces are waking up in the middle of a museum one day, and they don't know where they are, who are the people who are looking at them. They are completely out of context, out of purpose. And some of them are freaking out, some of them are angry, and they have different attitudes about it. They also are a commentary about racism in Peru. By the way, you have the original piece in some of them on the right, and then my version. So that's the grandmother of the piece. And that's why they have slurs for names. And that's also why they have my face, because if I'm using slurs, I don't want people to think that I'm insulting somebody else. I have to take those names on myself. They are all girls, just because I'm a woman. And I always call them the Plunder girls. And I'm so happy to see them here. And some of them I haven't seen in a long time. It has been like a reunion, somebody said. So Plunder Me Baby has been shown in the Yingé Museum of Ceramics. I intervened the collection with 12 of them, I think. And they have been in Peru too, in a main solo exhibition I had there a few years ago. And they are shown either in storage shelves or in showcases. That was at Garth Gallery. That was the Bellevue Museum. Oh, no, that's Garth still. Barry Friedman. And this is in Lima, in which they were in actual showcases from an anthropology museum. It was great. And in that exhibition I had my paintings too, because I paint. And I paint also, I know you're gonna see, look and think, okay, that's her face too, what's going on? I'm my best model. And I wanted to see how I age, because I'm as many, I'm afraid of old age and of aging, and I wanted to see it and confront it and accept it. And that's part of the idea of this series. A friend of mine told me once, by the way, this is Santa Chingada too, you know, the painting is great and whatever, and I said, nah, painting is dead. And then years later I began painting again, and he came once and he said, no, that the painting was dead, and I said, yeah, all of these are cadavers. So that was the cadaver series. Peruvian. I have to trademark that.
Yeah.
Trademark or copyright? That was my dog. After 19 years, she left me. And that's my other dog. After 18 years, she left me. Which means I'm very good with dogs. But come on, 19 years, 18 years, those dogs were like very happy. That was the first painting of the series. This and this one, I took photos and I went to see my father when he went to the hospital for a heart surgery. And my father, since the day I left to that day, he always told me, paint. Because for my father, I was the best painter. Ceramic, he was not like, like that convinced. I mean, he liked the work, but because he wanted to be a painter. And you can see in the video how he shamelessly say that I was his hands. He always wanted to be a painter. And ceramic was not making it for him, because he never wanted to be a ceramicist. So when I began painting, it happens that he was at the hospital, so I took photos of these paintings and I took it, and you could see his face, the battle between my daughter's naked, she's painting. And even worse, when friends of him would come to visit, he was a very charismatic man, everybody would visit him. And he would have the photos with him and look at the people, and I would see how he was sensing saving the person. No? Should I show the photos or shouldn't I? And he was so proud that he couldn't help himself, and he would show them, but then he would be looking at their eyes to see what, how they were looking at it. I returned to painting after many years. This is a painting I did when he died. He had that surgery and he died 2 weeks later. So this is me and myself when I was 3 years old and I had my first paper. This is a very hard painting to explain to my daughter. Why don't you have your head? And then I tried to explain to her, well, Catholic religion, when they came, and she's not grasping it yet. This is a Peruvian saint who did very crazy things. And this is titled The Temptations of Santa Rosita. And this painting, because it's here, I'll tell you, there's a small town in the coast of Peru in the south where it said that women who were in love would go to see this shaman, quote unquote, because that's not actually the title, but they would go and say, I'm in love with such and such. So he would go and hand live a little bird, and he would go through its heart with a needle and a white thread. And then the thread obviously would come red, and he would give it to this woman, who then is supposed to embroider the name of the man she loved in that handkerchief. In this case, I am my husband's tortupilin. I'm about to embroider his name, even though I had his love already. That was an advantage. And it always surprises me how the only one who dies because of love is a little tiny bird. This is Super Martyr. This self-pity. I have my moments. This is a Venusina or Venus, and it's me trying to look like I am not, but that always the effort to look like what is the paradigm of beauty. And that is one of the things that I like to investigate in my work. I just imagine how it was for these people when the Spaniards came and then told them, forget about what you did, forget about what you liked. Now you're gonna do this kind of painting and you're gonna do this kind of architecture, and of course they were labor. And all of a sudden they, from being the center of their universe, from being the center of their own aesthetics, from finding themselves beautiful, they became the ugly ones of the story. And there's a reason for which I say that. Once I was doing a research of faces in Google. Who doesn't? And you cannot, Peruvian faces, and you cannot imagine the number of websites that came at that time with titles of who are the ugliest in Latin America, in South America. And the ugliest were Peruvians, Ecuadorians, and Bolivians, the ones who have the most original blood. And it breaks my heart to think that these people who found themselves beautiful, that I come from that, now when we think about beautiful, is somebody we will never be able to be. And especially in my ceramic work, my intent is to find myself beautiful again. Now it's hard when you're 54, but work with me. And this painting to me, is one of those rare moments in which I was able to escape the male gaze that tells me what is beautiful, and look at myself and find myself as I will never ever be again in my life, the most beautiful moment of my life, when I was 48 and when I was pregnant. That's why I struck that pose. And this painting, as weird as it may look, is not my idea. This iconography exists in a convent in Cusco. It's a painting from the 1800s, and is the founder of the Mercedes order being breastfed by the Virgin. So I took the iconography and I just changed the faces. It's my daughter, my husband, and I. And I put it in Facebook, and my husband's sister was outraged. I don't want to see my son, my brother. And his mother, their mother, had to explain to her, because the mother knew, she visited us, she saw the painting, she heard the story, and she explained to her why. And so we are all happy family again. But it was, she was outraged. And these are more drawings, me erasing them again. Erasing. And this is the last series. I'm sorry if I'm going too long, I apologize. Please don't sleep. Corpus, there's a procession in the main square of Cusco, that is the Corpus Christi. And it is happening in Cusco since 1572. And it is said that when Spaniards came, there were 350 huacas, or places of sacred entities, all over Cusco. And they, very smart, put a saint or a virgin in every, or most of these shrines. So people were indoctrinated to believe in Catholic religion and all that, but they would go and pray to the saint, but at the same time they would offer their veneration to the pre-Columbian or the Inca spirit that was underneath. And it is said that these 15 images that come from different parts of the city of Cusco, some of them are still an entity. That's why one of them, Santa Barbara, that you're going to see, has a lot of potatoes in her pedestal that they carry, because she's also Mother Earth, or Mother Potato, I'm sorry. So I like that idea. I like that these entities, in spite of everything that was done to eradicate them, are still there. So instead of making the saints, the colonial saints, the colonial cocoon, I imagine that I'm taking out these entities and bringing them forward, and this is the result. It's of course imagination, because many of these ceramics are inspired in pre-Columbian ceramics from other parts other than Cusco and the Inca culture. Like this is Nazca. Nazca never knew the Incas, but the idea is just survival. How in spite of everything they survived. So that you have an idea, they also have human heads. And 5 of them went to the ceramic biennial of Gyeonggi in South Korea, and they got the grand prize there. They also got a Guggenheim. This has been a very important series in my work. And just in case, I'm looking for a place that they can be exhibited someday, now that I finally finished. Like a month ago, I finished the very last one. They are supposed to go to Peru, to the Museum of Contemporary Art, but they don't have the way to transport them. This is Santa Barbara, and she has the potatoes at the bottom. This is Saint Joseph. And this one has my mother's face. And this is Saint Anna and the little Virgin Mary. And since Saint Anna is an old mother, I decided to make myself and my daughter when she was younger. And that's it. Thank you for your time.